On screen, black. Wind howls. A door creaks open. Soft metallic rattle, like a key turning somewhere, off camera. Narrator, slow, calm, unnerving sometimes. The most terrifying crimes don't happen in dark forests or abandoned warehouses. Sometimes they happen behind the door of a normal home. A home with lights on, dinners cooking, and neighbors passing by every single day. Tonight's story is one of Japan's most haunting cases. A crime hidden in plain sight, inside a suburban house that hundreds of people walked past, while a missing girl waited for rescue that never came. A case investigators still speak about in disbelief. A case that cracked open the flaws in Japan's justice system. A case that changed how missing persons are handled forever. This is the story of Junko Furuta, the girl the world failed to save. Cut to title card, The Vanished Girl, the case that shook Japan. Music deepens. Fade to black. B-roll, 1980s Japan. School uniforms, bikes parked, students chatting. Narrator. 17-year-old Junko Furuta wasn't a troublemaker, a wanderer, or a rebel. She was a top student, disciplined, goal-driven. She was planning her future carefully. A job after school, financial independence, maybe college. She left school that day like she always did. Books neatly stacked in her bag, uniform clean, hair tied with simple polish. But something felt different. Not to her, but to the people who would later retrace every step she took. It was twilight. The orange streetlights had just flickered on. Shadows stretched across the pavement. It was the hour where the familiar feels slightly off. And as Junko walked down her usual route home, a group of boys watched her. They weren't strangers to the neighborhood. They weren't outsiders. They were known notoriously. Part of a local group tied to small gangs. Teenagers who exploited fear, who intimidated for fun. Boys who believed nothing could touch them, because so far nothing ever had. And that's when they made the decision that would end Junko's life and stain Japan's criminal history forever. B-roll, suburban streets, warm-lit windows, family homes, a calm neighborhood that looks completely innocent. Narrator, the boys didn't take Junko to a forest, not to a hideout, not to an abandoned structure. They took her to a regular house, 2-story, residential, quiet, a place where laundry dried outside, where kids walked past on their way to school, where parents watered their gardens on weekends. It was the perfect disguise, normalcy. Everything about the home looked safe. Nothing suggested that someone was inside, against her will, waiting for help that would never come. Cut to a recreated shot, a dim bedroom door, slightly cracked, light flickering from inside. Narrator, this house would become Junko's prison, a place where time stopped for her, but continued normally for everyone else. Parents downstairs cooked dinner. Television shows played in the background. Guests came and went. The neighborhood lived its life, while Junko's life slowly disappeared into silence. B-roll, police cars, missing flyers, reenactment of parents at the station. Narrator, when Junko didn't return home, her parents panicked instantly. She wasn't the type to disappear, not even for an hour. A missing person report was filed the same day. Rare for Japan, where police sometimes wait 24 hours before labeling a disappearance. Officers took the case seriously. They questioned classmates, friends, residents, and soon they heard a rumor. A name, a house. It was the exact house Junko was held in. Cut to dramatization. Police knock on the door. Voices murmur inside. Narrator, the boys inside panicked. But they were familiar with manipulation. They had lied to police before. And this time, their confidence paid off. When officers asked if a girl was inside, the boys said no. They laughed. They joked. They dismissed the suspicion as a misunderstanding. And the police believed them. They turned around, walked down the steps, and left, never realizing that behind the door they had just questioned was the very girl the entire city was searching for. This moment remains one of Japan's most heartbreaking investigative failures. A split-second decision that, had it gone differently, would have saved a life. B-roll, night shots, close-ups on windows, neighbors passing by. Narrator. In the weeks that followed, the neighborhood began to sense something was wrong. Some heard strange thuds. Some heard voices that didn't sound like arguments, but like distress. A few neighbors claimed they hesitated to get involved. Others assumed the sounds were typical teenage behavior. And some simply didn't want trouble with the boys who lived there. Japan's culture in the late 1980s prized privacy. Interfering in someone else's home life was socially frowned upon. People trust stability over suspicion, normalcy over paranoia, denial over confrontation. And so, no one acted. Expert interview cutaway. This case is the perfect demonstration of the bystander effect. People don't act because they don't believe they're the one who should, or because they're scared of being wrong. But in this case, being wrong would still have been better than doing nothing. Narrator, behind one window of that home, a life was deteriorating, and the world outside kept moving. Children played on the street, families walked to school, bicycles passed by, dogs barked. Everyday sounds continued, all while an unseen tragedy unfolded in silence. B-roll, police lights, officers entering the home, evidence being bagged. Narrator, weeks passed. Then the boys made a mistake, a careless remark to a friend. A slip-up during a conversation, a moment of ego that unraveled everything. The friend informed police. Officers returned to the house, this time with far more suspicion. When they entered, what they found changed Japanese criminal history forever. The home that looked harmless from the outside held a story so dark and complex that officers struggled to comprehend how it went unnoticed for so long. Investigators were shaken. The country was horrified, and as the details emerged, even without graphic descriptions, the public demanded answers. How did no one see this? Why did neighbors stay silent? How did police walk away that first night? How did the boys think they'd get away with this? Japan was forced to confront not only the cruelty of the crime, but the failures that allowed it to continue. B-roll, courtroom reenactments, news headlines, crowds protesting. Narrator, then came the trials. The suspects were minors, and under Japanese juvenile law, they could not receive the full weight of adult sentencing. When the sentences were announced, the public was outraged. People believed justice had not been served, that the punishment didn't reflect the severity or length of the crime, that the system protected the wrong people. Mass protests erupted. Editorials filled newspapers. Talk shows debated for weeks. Junko Furuta's name spread across the nation, not as a statistic, but as a symbol of systemic failure. Her case would influence police procedure reforms, missing person response guidelines, juvenile law debates, community reporting ethics. Japan vowed never to allow another case like this again. B-roll, candlelight. The neighborhood today. Slow pans of empty streets. Narrator, Junko Furuta's story is not just a crime story. It's a warning, a reminder that danger doesn't always look like danger, that evil doesn't always hide in shadows. Sometimes it hides in a home with a warm porch light, behind a door slightly ajar, in a room we'll never see. Her story forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. Would we have intervened? Would we have noticed? Would we have acted? In the end, the world failed to save her. But telling her story ensures she is remembered, not as a victim, but as the girl whose case changed everything. Fade to black. And remember, sometimes the scariest crimes are the ones that happen right in front of us.